Hey everybody, I hope you've been enjoying the videos so far. I know that I am so excited to be back on the project. I felt like I missed out on so much this summer, but man, look at all this work that was done. And we're gonna be launching into doing the house top soon, which is gonna be so much fun because it's finally gonna look like the livable space it's gonna be and be able to kind of mock things up, and it's just gonna be great. I would like to bring up two PSAs for you all. If it's not your kind of thing, just skip ahead, don't even watch this. But I would like to address the talk that we had in the last video about the ownership of the boat. So Steve and I discussed the project for years before we even got started, and the ownership of the boat was just such an easy thing to decide. First of all, Steve came up with the idea of the project. The wood is coming from their property, so it didn't even cross my mind to even have ownership of it. The fact that I was involved was already just amazing. I mean, this is such a great project to be able to have a part in, and honestly, this is basically an apprenticeship for me. So once this is finished, I can go and build any boat I want afterwards, and Steve would be more than happy to help me out with that. There are also other ways to compensate for the work here. You know, we are making a little bit of money off of this, and Steve is not taking a salary. I am. But this is basically a job for me, but it's a job where I get to learn what I want. I get to work with my best friend. I get to make up my own hours if I want to. And again, I get to learn how to do all of this for the future. So I appreciate everybody's concern for me, but Steve is not the villain that everybody makes him out to be. So I would like that to just be squashed from here on out. The other thing is, by the time this video comes out, it is almost going to be voting day here in America, and we would like to request that you all do your civic duty and get out and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. We don't care about any of that. You make your own decisions, but it is a very, very important thing to do, so please go out and vote.
So last week, with Alex back in the boathouse once more, he and Steve got most of Arabella's main deck beams taken out and prepped for varnishing. The rain had other plans, though, so that was delayed a bit, but Alex got started on restoring a couple of Victoria's old knees inside. And that's where we'll pick up from this week.
Back to work on the knees here. So when we left off last time, I had cut out all of these blanks for this knee here to be fixed up, and then I have this last little piece that needs to fit in the corner here that I have to shape before I can glue this all up. The other thing is we still have this knee here that needs a bunch of blanks. So what I've got to do right now is plane up a couple more of these large blanks so that we can have enough to work on this guy and fix that up. So I think that is what we're going to start with now, so that I can then work on both of them to put them together. I can drill out the cores for where the bolts were, and everything has been kind of gotten all punky and a little rotten, so we can fix that as well. So we have two pieces of larch here that are going to be plenty for the rest of what we need for that last knee to be fixed. And then we have one more board, but I want to save that one because that one looks like the nicest. And it looks like I can get what I need out of these. So this one's a little long, and there's like a big split out the end over here. So I think I'm going to cut that more or less where I need it. That way I just have these couple lengths to work with and not have to put more through the planer than is necessary.
We've somehow managed to get to this point in the video and someone has not commented about the fact that I'm only putting one screw in for each of these short beams and for the carlines. I don't know, I'd be really surprised. I'm sure there's a few comments already. The reason that we're just putting in one of these screws, there's a couple of reasons actually. One is that we're fastening into end grain, which is just never terribly strong to begin with. Two, these timbers are not gigantic, so fastening into end grain and then putting in more fasteners, you know, it's not going to get you super far. But you got to remember that when all of this goes together, what really is going to keep these deck beams from spreading fore and aft is all of the decking that's attached to them that goes fore and aft. And what's going to keep them from spreading from port to starboard is the deck beams that go all the way across and the tie rods that we're going to put in, and the framing that goes in for all the openings for the house and for the hatches, because those are all quite strong as well. All we're really looking for the screws to do right now is to hold the carlines and the short beams down into the joint where they need to belong, and just to hold the deck beams, you know, fore and aft snugly up against the carlines and the short beams. And that way, when we go to fare on the deck and we go to put the planking on or the decking on, those will all stay put, and we don't have to worry about, you know, did one go up or down, or did it kind of get knocked out of where it needed to be for some reason. So the screws are pretty much just registering them. Honestly, we could probably take all of those screws out and just put the tie rods in and put the decking on, and everything would more than likely be hunky-dory. Some people put in dovetails, but from all of the reading that I have done, it seems like dovetails are not terribly recommended. They come a little bit from a time when labor and great timber was cheap and metal fasteners were crazy expensive. Kind of gone the other way now, right? Really good lumber is very expensive and labor is very expensive, but metal fasteners not so bad, even when you're working in bronze like we are. So they've switched over more to just putting in the metal fasteners, putting in the tie rods to hold things together. And if we were to put dovetails in, the tails, the shoulders of them would not be terribly large. And the pressures that can come with the boat being racked, you know, in a heavy seaway under big sail or whatnot, those dovetails are going to have a tendency to either split out the sides or to strip the tails off. And dovetails are great with something like a drawer or a chest where you've got a whole bunch of dovetails all right near each other, all in a line, and none of the deck structure is set up that way. So that's why we're doing carlin joints. That's why these are only getting one screw. It's really that decking that goes on that really ties things together fore and aft, and it's the full width deck beams, and it's those tie rods that really keep everything together from port to starboard. How are the knees coming?
Slow and tedious, but good.
Yeah, getting good fits can be tedious.
All right, so I've got all the blanks made up for gluing. The next step is to clean up the bolt holes, like we said. So I got to go in there and see what's good and what's not good, and then try to remove as much of that as we can. And then we're gonna make some dowels out of the larch, and we're gonna peg those in right in there and glue those right in so that we have some good timber back in there. All right, so I've got a couple of dowels made out of the 1/2 inch stuff, and then I made this guy on the lathe, which is 5/8. So the reason I've got 2 different sizes is I reamed out some of the holes. Some of these were pretty good, and so I just kind of touched them up with a 1/2 inch, and these will fit pretty snugly in here, right there. And then some of the ones that had a little bit more damage in them, I reamed out to 5/8. And so we've got a bigger dowel to go through in those right here and here. So we are gonna take these inside, we're gonna let them warm up, we're gonna slather some glue on things and put the dowels in the holes, cut them off, and then we're gonna put these guys all in place and clamp them in place. So we will get back once these are done.
Hi, my name is Scott Odekirk from the Wooden Boat Experience, and I came here to draw this wooden boat behind me because wooden boats is what I'm about and what my channel is about. Here is the drawing I did on my iPad, which looks, there you can see it right there. So the Wooden Boat Experience is about wooden boats, me restoring wooden boats, building wooden boats, checking out other people building wooden boats, and going out in wooden boats. So it's almost all about wooden boats. So check us out on the Glass Goat channel, the Wooden Boat Experience.
All of the deck structure that we removed, it's got sealed, it got varnished, and most of it is permanently bolted into the boat. Well, permanently, I mean, it's a wooden boat. Someday it'll probably come out for repairs, but hopefully not in my lifetime. So those are all bolted in with a couple exceptions. One is the deck beam that supports the mizzen mast, and another is the deck beams that support all of the mast blocking, and those are not bolted in yet. And the reason is that we've got to pull out the deck beams that frame in either end of the house and the house carlines. Those need to get sanded, sealed, varnished, and installed. We didn't want to pull all of the decking out at once and run the risk of the boat moving. We wanted to leave a little bit of it in. So the Samson post here and its deck beam and the stuff that frames in the house, we left those in. So we're going to pop those out, we're going to sand them, we're going to seal them, we're going to varnish them, and install them. But the house carlines, they need to have the screws put in the end. And if we put in the deck beam for the mizzen support, and if we put in the deck beams with the mast blocking, we're not going to be able to get a drill or a screw between the deck beams to screw into the ends of the carlines. So this is what I'm talking about here. So we've got the forward end of the house here. We got the full width deck beam. And we're going to want to put a screw in to register this carlin for the house. And as you can see, can't quite get in there and be able to drill that. So I could probably drill it at a bit of a funny angle and get it to go. But what's going to be a lot nicer is this whole assembly here is loose. So we're just going to slide it, you know, to port or forward, whatever, so that we can get the drill in here, fasten this, and then we'll bolt this back down. And have the same thing in the stern with the deck beam that supports the mizzen. With that deck beam out, we'll be able to get the drill in there and screw in the aft ends of the house carlin. Fun, fun jigsaw puzzle. All right, so I'm gonna grab the tools and pull out all of the house assembly here on the Samson post and fire up the fest tool and get to sanding. Thanks for the bread, neighbor. It is delicious. Kiva, it's enough. Leave it. He ain't gonna leave it.
All right, here we are. We let the knees set up overnight. So I'm gonna work on cleaning these up a little bit, cut off the excess, so like on these, cut the dowels out, and then probably plane this, maybe put it through the little sander that's behind me right here. Kind of just get them looking nice, and then we can put the pattern on them and start cutting things out and see about installing them. Okay, so here you have them. These are the restored knees that we made. We can already hear it from everybody. You don't have to say it. These are not going to be everybody's favorite. I know that the wood from the Hackmatack, the original knees, is very different than the larch that we use to fix them. And many people are not going to like the look of that. For us, it's not necessarily about the look, although we don't mind this. They are Victoria's knees, and for us it's a little bit of nostalgia. And before anybody goes ahead and says, well, they're not going to be as strong, they don't need to be as strong as everybody is saying. These are going to be holding up the sides of the deck house, and they will be plenty strong. And if you think about it, these are going to be through bolted through all of these layers. And this wedge here that we salvaged is going to help to reinforce everything. So these are going to be plenty good for Arabella. And on top of that, we have the whole story of where they came from, which is going to be something really awesome for us to kind of think on when we're actually sailing Arabella. It's a big part of the story, and that was part of the big part of reusing these. Not to mention the oak knees that we have would be completely overkill there. And those oak knees we now can use in places that are a little bit more structural and need those strengths there, such as by the masts. Where the masts are going to take all that pressure, those knees can really reinforce that deck structure right there. And it's not to say that these aren't going to do anything and that they need to be weak. That is not true. These are plenty strong, and they will do just fine. So before I can go ahead and start installing these or even cutting them out, I obviously haven't cut the shape of them yet. I need to go ahead and reinstall all of the deck beams and deck structure that Steve and I have pulled out and started sealing. So that is going to be the next step. So as you can see, the carlines and the deck beams over here are all varnished and ready to go back in. So I am going to have to carry those in, put them over, and then these are going to get clamped in place, and the screws in the ends that Steve talked about are going to get put in, as well as all the bolts that go down. These two short beams right here need a bolt as well when this gets reinstalled. And then once that is done, we can start working on the tie rods for the short beams that Steve had just made, see how those work out. before we can start installing the knees, which is going to be super exciting. So I'm looking forward to getting into this. So let's start moving some heavy timbers, per usual. I've missed that this summer.
Thanks for joining us as always. And just to repeat from the start of today's video, if you are watching from the United States, we hope that you double check your plan to vote and that you plan to do so before November 3rd somehow, or on November 3rd, which is voting day in the USA. If you're still holding on to a mail-in ballot and you haven't sent that in yet, it is too late to send that in the mail. But you can still cast your ballot by dropping that off in person at your local election office. We hope you're all safe and healthy out there, and we look forward to seeing you here next week.